So, here's a question I've been pondering. Are narcissists happy? They, after all, have the well-earned reputation of constantly putting themselves first. While the rest of us can often get caught up in the miseries of everyone around us, for a narcissist, a friend in need, a colleague in crisis, or hell, even a crying baby, are far too easy to ignore in favor of their own desires. So does that mean that narcissists are happy? First of all, the reason they prioritize themselves is because their narcissism vehemently insists on displaying to others their superiority. But note how I said displaying to others, because it's just a facade and not something they actually believe. They want to believe in their own superiority, but in truth, narcissists are working hard to hide their insecurities from the world. In order to counteract said insecurities, they seek to use others as fuel. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that narcissists are like vampires or something, but I suppose the way they look at people in their lives as not cherished loved ones, but tools to use to bolster their own self-worth does seem vampire-like, or at least Dracula-adjacent. Narcissists don't have relationships. They have transactions, with the goal of each interaction being to get as much fuel as the situation will yield. This might mean flicking your coat back to draw as much attention as possible to your baby bump, or pushing your husband out of the way so you can score a solo shot of you hugging a man mourning the death of his child, or stirring up pregnancy rumors at someone else's wedding. Attention is great, but attention at the expense of a bride on her wedding day is like narcissist Christmas. When attention isn't the goal, however, narcissists resort to holding people to towering expectations that they will always fall short of. This gives the narcissist plenty of opportunity to criticize them endlessly and keep them constantly working on earning the narcissist's approval, which will never come. Employees and significant others suffer the most here. Employees shuffle out the door eventually after all the impossible to meet and often shifting standards, as well as the barrage of criticism. Like how a host of long-serving faithful royal aides left their job serving a difficult duchess amid bullying claims. People in relationships with narcissists, on the other hand, can often feel trapped, clutching onto hope that things will eventually get better if they just work hard enough to make the narcissist happy. Bringing us back to the question, are narcissists capable of being happy? The combination of this fuel of attention, putting others down, and constantly watching people clamor for their approval is like a drop in a bucket with a sizable hole. The fuel is satisfactory only for the briefest of moments before they're quickly looking for their next hit. That's the eternal curse of being empty inside.
Hey, can you keep it down? You're disrupting my very important work.
What work?
Well, if you must know, I'm trying to solve my sister's murder. They say she was killed by her husband before he turned the gun on himself. My niece, she's devastated. How could her father kill her mother? And the police are not being very helpful. But I know I can do something about it. I can get to the bottom of this and bring some peace to my sister
June's journey.
So please keep it down so I can get back to my work, which is clearly more important than whatever it is you do.
Well, I'm gonna get back to work.
Or you could come help me solve a murder.
I really don't have time for this right now, unless it's a captivating hidden object game set in the 1920s where I get to roleplay as a sharp-witted detective with a penchant for crime solving, but also simultaneously get to remodel and decorate my own mansion and island.
Well, funny you should mention that.
Give it to me.
Well, while she's playing the game, let me tell you more about today's sponsor, June's Journey, a game that allows you to step into the shoes of June Parker as she unravels the mysteries across stunning locations around the world. Every scene has been meticulously crafted to immerse you in the glamour and intrigue of the era. But beware, not everything is as it seems. Dive deep into the secrets of June's past and uncover shocking revelations that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The game is completely free to download, so if you want to check it out, use the link in the description or use the QR code on the screen.
I'm so much better at this than you.
Where do you get that hat?
What hat?
Wait, where did I get the hat?
Forget about that. We need to talk about the glasses. Why were there 3 glasses at the crime scene when there were only 2 of them? Okay. Let's get back to it, shall we? The narcissist suffers from the curse of being empty inside and having their entire sense of self dependent on how and how much other people think of them. These questions are constantly on a narcissist's mind because if they don't hold the attention of everyone around them, then they'll fade away into oblivion. It's this obsession that may make a narcissist, let's say, preemptively launch a far from completed website in order to snatch attention from her husband and brother-in-law who were at that very moment distributing awards in honor of their mother's memory. It's this fixation on being perceived a certain way that may make a narcissist leave an engagement 6 minutes after arriving, snubbing hundreds of women who have been eagerly waiting because the narcissist didn't like the presence of an organization that didn't give her the correct recognition that she craved years ago. It's this preoccupation with how people think of you that may lead to a narcissist making up a lie on the spot about getting married 3 days prior to her $45 million wedding so that Oprah and everyone watching will think of her as a down-to-earth girly rather than a difficult duchess.
3 days before our wedding, we got married. No one knows that, but we called the Archbishop and we just said, look, this spectacle is for the world, but we want our union between us.
It's this self-absorption that makes narcissists ultimately massive failures at whatever work they pursue because they care so much about getting attention in the shortest of cut ways rather than engaging in any form of arduous hard work that would get them genuine success.
It's about being authentic.
Narcissists also care more about seeming virtuous rather than actually being virtuous. Since their narcissism is trying to hide from them their own insecurities, it constantly tells them that they are far superior to others. This means that narcissists don't believe that they need to earn being looked at as superior since they already are. And since they are superior, they believe that anything they say should be accepted as gospel by the public. Their narcissism shields them from the harsh truth that while they are sophisticated in their ability to ensnare their victims, pose as victims, and generally stir up attention and intrigue, narcissists are far from being the most intelligent people in the room. This makes their lies far too easy to see through, especially for any keen observer. So, a narcissist's desire to be seen a certain way slips further and further away with every passing moment and every spoken lie. The attention dwindles with time as more and more people see their true nature and they all eventually turn away from them. And previously devoted partners wise up after years and years of narcissistic abuse and bitterly walk away, leaving the narcissist inevitably alone. Their goal for infinite control, everlasting adulation, and eternal beauty all fading away with time. And all the while, the narcissist has lived without ever experiencing true joy. So, now that we've determined how and why narcissists are incapable of being happy, I have 2 additional questions that I want to explore. Number 1, what happens to a narcissist eventually? After everyone around them has seen through their manipulation, had enough of their cruelty, and abandoned them, do they realize that they are the problem after all? And number 2, is it possible that you and I could be making the same mistakes as a narcissist and thus causing our own misery? To understand this, we have to talk about what causes unhappiness in the first place. And it can be most simply reduced down to one word: expectation. We hope something will happen, we work to make it happen, it doesn't, we're unhappy. And even if we get what we want, as we're in the process of getting it, we've shifted the goalpost enough that once we're holding that once valued reward in our hands, we experience fleeting satisfaction because one eye is already on the next goal. That's how we trap ourselves in this cycle of always hunting for the next thing. We're also looking for external sources of happiness rather than looking for happiness within. This is why a lot of philosophies discourage attachment because it creates misery. So does that mean we shouldn't be attached to anything, make no goals, sell off all of our possessions, and have no loved ones and just go live off in the woods? Absolutely not. It's important to remember the distinction between love and attachment. You can love something, but not be so attached that it becomes a crutch. You can love someone, but not be so attached that you force them to behave exactly as you wish. You can love your work, but not be so attached that you're constantly disappointed when it doesn't yield the results that you want. This is the mistake the narcissist makes. Since their entire being is so dependent on outside forces, they try to force everything and everyone to mangle themselves into being what they want and need, rather than for loving them for what they are. And to be honest, I make similar mistakes, especially when it comes to this channel, where I get excited for a new video, but when it comes out and doesn't perform the way I want it to, I'm crushed. The truth is, and I really have to remind myself of this often, you have to make a distinction between what you can and cannot control. And I'll take it one step further because we're talking about narcissists. What you shouldn't control. When it comes to my work, I can control only the effort that I put into baggage claim. I can't control the results. The most I can and should expect from myself is, am I doing the best work that I am capable of doing? If so, then that effort, rather than the results, is what should make me happy and proud. If I'm not, then I should do my best to rectify that. It's the same in relationships, where attachment can make us feel that it's the other person's responsibility to make us happy. And this expectation eventually leads us to great depths of disappointment when they inevitably fail to do that. Love is realizing that they too are suffering just like us. And we can build a happier and healthier relationship by supporting each other in our own journeys to happiness. The final piece of this journey of happiness is recognizing that nothing is permanent, not the good, not the bad. And accepting this prevents us from taking the good things for granted and for letting the bad things consume us. Like the great maxim says, this too shall pass. The narcissist struggles to accept this because they can't bear their lack of control over their world. They look at everyone around them as puppets and themselves as the masters. So they seek to exert as much control as possible to make their puppets dance to their desired tune. And whenever something doesn't go exactly to plan, it brings them great misery that they immediately spin up into victimhood narratives. An example of this may be a narcissist who wanted to leave the royal family so she and her husband could start earning money and still retain all royal titles and privileges, but was denied this request to be half in, half out. As retribution, she went on Oprah and spun up a great tale of woe of the royal family's profound racism against her, and yet could never produce a single piece of proof to support this accusation, not to mention all the inconsistencies. This brings me to my final point that will also help us answer the question about whether narcissists ever realize that they are the problem. Simply put, the answer is no, because of their ego. Narcissists see themselves a certain way, perfect and a perfect victim, and anything that challenges that perception, whether externally or internally, is quickly ejected to the trash heap. So when they're forced to contend with being abandoned by all those people that they try to use as fuel, they don't see themselves as the perpetrators. They see themselves as the victims. That person abandoned me. This person didn't see all the ways I did so much for them. I'm always mistreated by everyone. These types of thoughts burnish their tenuous self-esteem and keep them afloat for another day, and on they roll in their delusion. For the rest of us, our egos too can trip us up in similar ways, making it outright impossible to see the reality in front of us. This is because the ego craves stability. It takes the idea of what it thinks we are and then it codifies it. I'm an honest person, I'm a smart person, I'm a generous person. So when a friend challenges that by accusing us of being dishonest, foolish, and selfish, our hackles go up because our ego doesn't like the uncertainty this challenge creates in our sense of self. If the friend is correct, then maybe we are nothing like we think we are. Maybe we're the worst person that's ever existed. The ego doesn't like volatility. Incensed, it deploys a fierce defense. I'm selfish? What about you? I wouldn't have to do the selfish thing if you hadn't done the more selfish thing in the first place. And boom, you're in a full-fledged war with a friend. The ego is great at defending our honor. The problem is that because it has such a solidified idea of who we are, it can often be wrong. We're not this static idea. We're ever-changing beings. We're prone to making mistakes. And just because you made a mistake and hurt a friend doesn't make you suddenly a bad person. But the ego looks at it that way, in this you're right, so that means I'm wrong and that's unacceptable. It looks at things in a very combative black and white way. So this is why it's so important to challenge your ego, because maybe your ego is wrong about who you are. That ounce of humility is what can help you constantly maintain a healthy relationship with your ego, where it isn't overreacting to any form of criticism. And it also allows you to have a healthier relationship with everybody around you, where your loved ones can feel like they can be open and honest with you without earning your ire and maybe getting an earring ripped off. It's this willingness to be humble that can make it possible for you and me to be happy. And it's this unwillingness to be humble that prevents a narcissist from happiness. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this valuable. If you did, please consider subscribing. Also, a big thank you to June's Journey for sponsoring this video. Make sure to use the link in the description or the QR code on screen if you want to check out the game for yourselves. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.